Hello, everybody. We haven't done one of these in a while, but I thought in the context of yesterday's pretty historic decision of the European Court of Justice about the so-called Apple tax issue, I thought it would be very important to come on and chat with people about what really is a shocking indictment of the government's corporate tax haven policy, the tax scam by Apple, which the government facilitated, and the corporate tax haven policy which continues and which is linked to the massive inequality in our society, the housing crisis in our society, the health crisis in our society, because fundamentally we have a government and a political establishment that stands up for the super wealthy corporations as opposed to the interests of ordinary people. So by this stage, I'm sure everyone has seen that the European Court of Justice ruled in this final decision to say that Ireland was given what's known as illegal state aid, so like special aid to Apple, by virtue of this special tax arrangement that they had with Apple. It's hard to overstate what a special arrangement that it was. So, if you're an ordinary worker out there with an average income, you're paying a marginal rate of tax of 52% on your income. And yet Apple, by using this particular tax scam, which I'll explain, was paying a rate of tax of 0.005%. So that means for every 20,000 euros of profits they were making, they were paying tax of €1 or less. Whereas if you're a worker at an average income, for every 20,000 euros you're making, you're paying more than 10,000 euros of that in tax. So this huge scam was being operated by Apple. It was a scam that was organised by what are known as tax rulings by revenue. So Apple goes to the state, goes to the tax person, goes to revenue and says, we are looking to operate this sort of thing. Will you please give us a ruling to say how you'll treat us? And basically how they would be treated was outlined in a tax ruling in 1991 and 2007, and then was operated for a period of years and was a way of avoiding tax on a massive scale. I have a chart here helpfully, which I think will come up back to front for you, but hopefully, yes it will, but it still should be clear enough. Which is from the European Commission at the time they made the original decision, which was back in 2016, which explains basically what was happening, whereby all European sales, all the sales that Apple was doing all across Europe were being recorded through this company, which was registered in Ireland, Apple Sales International. But Apple Sales International had a branch of itself to a head office, which existed only on paper, but was supposedly in Bermuda. So this was a branch of a company supposedly registered, or actually registered in Ireland, but which was effectively treated like a company in Bermuda and therefore not subject to any tax. So all the money flowed through here, nominally went to Bermuda, and therefore basically didn't pay any tax. So between 2004 and 2014, they funneled profits of more than 110 billion euros through this tax scam authorised by the Irish government and avoided tax of over 13 billion euros. This emerged as a story because it was raised in Senate hearings in the US in 2013. We tried to raise it. We raised it in the Dáil at that point in time. Richard Boyd Barrett pushed on the Finance Committee for there to be a discussion about it, but the entire political establishment came together to try and shut that down. Then in 2016, the European Commission did an investigation, and they said there's a scam going on here, there's illegal state aid. Apple owes the Irish public, the taxpayer, over 13 billion euros. And the Irish government was up in arms about it. They were talking about tax. That was an attack on the sovereignty of the Irish state. They're just jealous about our low taxation rates for corporations. And they had a vote in the Dáil where Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, the Labour Party, a bunch of different independents from Michael Lowry to Healy Rae came together to say the Irish government should take a court case, spend the public money to fight a court case to say that Apple should keep this money as opposed to the money coming to ordinary people. This is in the context of housing crisis, health crisis, massive inequality, child poverty, etc. The government, it's as simple as this, the government and the broad political establishment decided that they were going to use public money to fight for money to stay in one of the richest companies in the whole world, as opposed to being given to the state to be used for public services, investment, and so on. So that's what happened. Then so the Irish state then appealed this decision to the European courts. First of all, that goes to the lower court, which is called the General Court, where you did a decision in, I think it was 2020, you did a decision there which found in favour of Ireland and Apple, which then was appealed by the European Commission. But at the time, it was outrageous. I remember, because I was in the Dáil in 2016 when it happened. I was in the Dáil in 2020, but in 2020 they were all saying it's a great victory for Ireland. It was the most bizarre thing in the world, because the victory for Ireland was that we don't get all this money which could be used to address the crisis, and instead Apple gets to keep that money. It was absolutely bizarre. They attacked those of us who said this is a tax scam, Ireland is operating as a tax haven. They tried to ridicule us. They said the whole time, oh, the money would never be, even if we won the court case, even if the European Commission won the court case, the money would never be Ireland's, etc., etc. But then the European Commission appealed it, and now we finally have the decision, which is that we were right, the European Commission was right, and this was a particular tax scam being operated by Apple, which only they effectively were able to access, which is why it counted it as illegal state aid. These are a huge amount of money. Close to 14 billion euros now. It's enough money to build 40,000 homes. It's enough money to add probably 10,000 or more beds to the hospital system. It's an absolutely extraordinary amount of money, which from our point of view now needs to be spent to address the crises that face ordinary people. It looks like the Irish government is going to say, oh, we should pay down the debt, we should put it into some fund for the future. Whereas that's completely wrong. We have crises today. It's raining today for very many people, for 14,000 people who are in emergency accommodation, for the 1 million people who are on hospital waiting lists, for the hundreds of thousands of children who are growing up in poverty. So that money needs to be invested now. And if you invest money, be it in public infrastructure, be it in retrofitting, be it in housing, well, then you get a return in the long run from that. So that's clearly what needs to happen. I will point out that the tax scams still continue. So effectively, why Apple got caught out here is that this was a version of what was known as the double Irish. So in the double Irish, you would actually, the bit in Bermuda would be set up as a separate company. The way that Apple got caught out is because they didn't set it up as a separate company. They set it up as a branch of an Irish registered company. That was kind of what was particular about it. But the double Irish was widely being used by other multinational corporations to effectively use Ireland as a corporate tax haven. That got shut down, and Apple moved away from this model of avoiding taxes in 2015 in the context of this rising pressure and kind of inquiries happening into it. But they continue to pay very, very little tax. They use a different mechanism of capital allowances for intangible assets, where they're able to write profits off against, they say, oh, this intellectual property is worth this much money. We can write all our profits off against it, and therefore write down our tax bill by a very significant degree. So this continues, and it does not work in the interest of ordinary people in this country or in the interest of ordinary people anywhere else. It's completely unsustainable, because if you want to win the race to the bottom in terms of corporate taxes, in terms of data protection, in terms of regulation, all these things, someone else can go even lower than you. So the only winner from this race to the bottom is the big corporations. And we need to now seize the opportunity of this windfall of over 13 billion euros and use that to invest in public services, to invest in providing a decent life for ordinary people, to invest in a rapid, just transition to a zero carbon economy. Something that I just go through questions. When you're referring to the government, do you mean Fine Gael or the government as a whole? I mean the government as a whole, which is Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and the Greens now. But this goes back to 2016. So over the course of this time, you would have had Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael in government together and separately, kind of. And the Labour Party was also supportive of this at the time. Username OMG says, what are you contributing? No power in opposition. I don't really fully understand that, like, in the sense that what we're contributing is we called this out at the time. We were one of very, very few people to be calling it. We've raised it repeatedly in the Dáil. We've called out the reality of Ireland as a corporate tax haven. We've put forward an alternative socialist model of how our economy could serve the needs of ordinary people in this country. We want to be in government. We want there to be a left eco-socialist government, and that's what we're going to be fighting for in the next general election. More tax breaks for working Irish families. We pay enough. Absolutely agree with you 100%. Could this ruling potentially lead to large multinationals pulling out of Ireland? So this is the story of the government and the story of the multinationals. Like, of course they want you to think this, right? That, like, oh, there was a reason. Like, on the face of it, this is very, very simple. The Irish government spent 10 million euros of your money to fight a court case, right? That's on legal fees. Some lawyers got hugely rich off this. They spent 10 million euros of your money to fight to say that you shouldn't get access to, collectively, over 13 billion euros, and instead a big corporation should get it. So they have to come up with a rationale for that, and their rationale is, oh, that's why the corporations are here, we have to do this, etc., etc. So there's two parts of the answer to that. One is, like, it's in their interest to say this, it's in their interest to spread this. I don't believe that Apple is going to disappear tomorrow. In fact, there's two different parts of Apple's operations here. There's the actual wealth creation of actual workers in Cork, with 5,000 workers employed. Those workers are paying tax. Those workers are actually adding to, like, the economy. They're creating actual goods and services. The second thing, like Apple Operations Europe, Apple Sales International, which is what this tax scam was operated through, they didn't have any employees. That's purely using Ireland as a corporate tax haven. So it's not true that all these multinationals are going to walk out the door because of this. But the second thing is to say that, like, building your economy on the basis of attracting multinationals, on the basis of winning the race to the bottom of taxation, winning the race to the bottom in terms of data protection legislation, winning the race to the bottom in other spheres, that is not a sustainable model. It's why we're in favour of a very, very different sort of economy, an economy that serves the needs of the people, as opposed to the people serving the needs of the big corporations and the banks. That's what a socialist economy is about. That's about public ownership, democratic control of the key areas of the economy. We can all get bike shelters in our gaffs, indeed. Thanks for your help with on welfare. We could all get a Rolex, indeed. What will the opposition parties do in government about this? Harris wasn't voted to be our leader. I mean, unfortunately, he was voted to be our leader not by the people, but in the Dáil. We obviously voted against it, but, you know, it's absolutely outrageous. There should have been a general election. We'll continue to push for a general election. There will be one soon. I think most likely to be the general election in mid-November, but it's possible it could go out till March, but it can't go any longer than that. And I think that's crucial. It's crucial we take our opportunity to kick out Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. People Before Profit is the only party which is saying to people clearly, we're not going into coalition with them. We think there needs to be an alternative. The High Time says help your own. Absolutely. That's what this is about. And I think this helps to clarify who is our own. Apple is not our own. Ordinary working people, regardless of what colour their skin is, what religion they are our own. And we need to it's in the interest of the likes of the Apple and the Google and Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, the big corporate landlords and so on, to try and divide people based on the colour of their skin, where they come from, or whatever. But the division in society, the real division in society, is between the ordinary workers in Apple, those who actually produce the wealth, between people presumably like you, just ordinary people who go to work for a wage or a salary, versus those who are living off of that labour of others, the super, super wealthy in our economy, and like they're the ones our whole society is structured for. They're the ones with massive power. They're the ones who get to pay 0.005% in tax when you're paying over 50% in tax. Do I feel we in Ireland missed our opportunity to go more socialist in the last election? I mean, we did, but we'll have another opportunity. And we need change. Honesty, agree 100%. Absolutely criminal, agree 100%. USC should be abolished, agree 100%. We have a proposal for USC, and we've called for this multiple budgets, but we're going to be pushing it again in our alternative budget coming, that USC should be abolished for all income under 100,000 euros and replaced by a wealth tax. It's a joke with the government, yeah. Sorry if I miss your... If the government don't think Apple should pay tax, why should we? Because you should not trust the government. Because this is the government... This is the government who thinks Apple should never pay any tax. You don't think any corporation should pay tax. You think you should pay for everything. So I think you should feel free to disagree with the government. But obviously, if you just want to follow what the government thinks, knock yourself out. Rolex Paul, answer my question. That's being blocked. Are you suggesting I have a Rolex? I do not have a Rolex. I have a Citizen watch. I think you can find it online. I got it as a gift. It's not very expensive. Check it out online if you want to wear a watch like me, if you think it looks like a Rolex. Oh yeah, he says it up here. Why is Paul, a man who claims he's a socialist, wearing a Rolex? Yeah, I definitely do not own a Rolex, Del Boy. Should go to the kids who need surgery. I agree. What do you make of the catastrophizing from conservatives about multinationals leaving? That's a good description in terms of the question I was answering previously. That's they have to scare people. You know, you have to scare people that it has to try and make sense for people that why we spend all our public money to keep Apple rich as opposed to building houses for homeless people. And so that's what the catastrophizing is about. Israel flew over airspace, absolutely. That's another thing. We will definitely try to... we'll be really raising a lot. The dollar's back next week. I mean, it makes a joke of all the government's false talk of solidarity, of sympathy with the Palestinians, etc., when Israeli arms were flying through Irish airspace. Okay, I'll fly down to the bottom of these questions here now on TikTok, make sure I haven't missed anything. What do you reckon the 13 billion should be spent on? Setting up a state construction company to build homes, number one, and like building a bunch of homes. So if you spend it all on houses, that's 40,000 homes effectively that you could build. So 1, homes, 2, healthcare, 3, enabling people to act and improving people's lives while tackling and seeking to avoid climate catastrophe. So retrofitting people's homes for free, putting solar panels on people's homes for free, and investing in free and frequent public transport. Shay said, if you think there will be another opportunity, what do you think has to happen? Well, there will be an election, and that is an opportunity. I mean, it's ultimately up to people whether they take it or not. Obviously, it's on us to kind of inspire people, to make people think that there's a purpose in coming out to vote, coming out to campaign for people before profit, etc. Tobin Farm says a state-run construction company would be well run. Well, you look at the Children's Hospital, that's a private construction company that's currently like ripping off the state massively. So yes, I think a state-run construction company that actually isn't some quango run by political appointees but has ordinary workers, democratically accountable, actually would be a good idea and would cut out the huge waste that is profit. This profit is this waste. It doesn't create these people making profits, the developers, and they're making record profits at the moment. That's not helping us build homes. That's just ending up in the pockets of very, very rich people. All right. So I think that hopefully covered. I'll just check over on Instagram. Sorry, I'm on 2 different phones. Is there any way we can have an Instagram some questions? We can have a say over the suspense. Thanks for all your hard work. Thank you. I mean, kind of legally no, but like the question is to create political pressure on the government to make it difficult for them. So I think we need to have clear demands to say this is what it should be spent on, and like get public pressure to say, and to make it difficult for the government to say no, because they're gonna want to just kick this off, suggest, oh, it's complicated, blah blah blah. So yeah, I think we have to do that. Everyone should vote in the next general election instead of whinging about things. I agree. You can continue to whinge about things and vote. And you can also come out to protest, get involved, because it's not just through elections that we change things. Fundamentally, change comes about because of people power fighting from below. That's how we defeated the water charges. That's how we won marriage equality. And that's what we need to do. Okay, cool. I will leave it there, and I will talk to you again hopefully later this week. If not later this week, then next week. Thank you very much.